Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to Water Tanks, and today I'm going to be 3-marking one of my favorite tier 9 tanks in the game. It is the brand new DZT-159. This is the Chinese rocket medium. It's the first rocket medium inside the game. It has this new feature of having short rockets that I will have covered extensively in my tank review. The reason why today's video isn't going to be a masterclass is because everything that I said in my tank review I still feel holds true. To be fair, it was a couple of weeks ago. All of the crew recommendations, all of the equipment recommendations, I would still give now. It's what works for me, and but I must add the caveat that a lot of players will prefer to improve the gun handling on this tank. I would still totally recommend that everybody uses a turbo, either a regular turbo or an experimental turbo, or the best one would be the Bond turbo. The reason why the best one would be the Bond turbo is because that's the one that's going to increase your top speed. What? I must have been having a funny time on the stream there to just notice that. Oh, that's really put me off. The reason why... I didn't remember doing that. Just quickly, I want to interrupt this DZT-159 marking video to let you know that I'm currently fundraising for cancer research and special effect to add to the $400,000 that we've raised since 2013. So I'd love for you to come and join the stream today, or click in the description down below to go and donate to the two charities. There are also exclusive drops on my Twitch channel today where you can go and get some more Santa baby skins. So hopefully I'll see you there. So the reason why I would recommend the Bond turbo is because that increase in the top speed allows this thing to go really fast. So the way that the rockets work on heavy tanks is they increase the top speed by 50%. I believe on this tank it's actually by 70%. And so a Bond turbo will go from 6 to over 10 kilometers an hour while you're using those 5-second boosts. Accordingly, it means the DZT-159 can actually reach 80 kilometers an hour if you're also using engineering as a driver skill on this tank. I would totally recommend the gun rammer. This vehicle is quite often all-in damage per minute based, and you need the reload. You can't get away without a gun rammer on this tank. So the only piece of equipment that I feel is up for debate is vents. For me, I love vents. They make everything about my tank better. A lot of people will prefer the gun handling on this tank when you're moving, when you're turning the turret. Although the turret traverse dispersion on this tank is really nice. It's 0.08, so that really doesn't need improvement. And I don't even think I would take snapshot on this tank because it feels like it's a bit of a waste. Smooth ride, however, definitely improve that. But the vert stabs, while they will make that gun handling better, then you'll have this awkward lack of accuracy and lack of aim time on this tank. Wargaming did end up buffing the aim time of this vehicle, but 2.7 seconds is still not great. And I do... yeah, love to use those rockets. No, but I do prefer to improve the aim time a little bit with the vents on this vehicle, and that accuracy just makes me so much better and more controlled at sniping. Now, obviously the big difference will be that the vert stabs will mean that you have to aim less and you'll be able to be more accurate quicker. But in the end, the vents will allow you to be more accurate if you have the time to aim. Accordingly, I tried 2 different field mods for the final field mod on this tank. I tried both with hit points, and I tried with the aim time. The hit points for me, they weren't worth it. I got 60 extra hit points, and while 60 extra hit points is nice because this vehicle, it doesn't have the highest amount of hit points, I do feel that with my build, with the vents instead of the vert stabs, that the aim time that I lost, I believe it was about 6% aim time, just felt absolutely horrendous. Ended up with me having to aim for those microseconds extra that just didn't have value. And the 60 extra hit points, I personally had a lot better time with this tank once I took the aim time on it, rather than taking those 60 extra hit points. So that's what I would recommend still. So I did have a little bit of an uncertainty with the final field mod recommendation in my tank review. So if any of you are sitting on the fence, I would definitely recommend, if you're going to use the build that I'm using with vents, that you definitely improve the aim time. If you're taking the vert stabs, I guess you could get away with taking the hit points, but I think you want to do everything that you can to improve the aim time on this vehicle. So boom, baby, there we go. I think that was an HE shell. Either that or it was a max roll. I'm pretty sure I had an HE shell loaded there for that SU-130 PM. So the DZT-159, it does so well on maps like this, in those kind of like juicy tier 8 and tier 9 matchups. Tier 7 matchups, there's usually not quite enough hit points on the enemy team to go around for a vehicle like this to really consider that you've had a great game. But these are the moments where I really feel that the vents on the DZT really helped out for me. You know, you've got more than enough time to aim, and then I'm going to be getting the extra with this build, about 3.5% accuracy. I put bond vents on this thing. I believe I did. I believe I put bond vents on this bad boy. And that will be improving my accuracy by 4%, which is a big difference as to when you're trying to hit these weak points. And even with the vents and the premium consumable, you're still not going to be hitting them reliably. Okay, so in this situation, I'm still spotting this VK at decent distances with the extra view range that we have from all of the cruise skill from the vents and the premium consumable. This vehicle, it kind of needs it as well, with that 390 meters base view range. Means that if you don't take vents for your second build with a vision system exhaust, which I thought was also amazing value on this vehicle, that you're really going to struggle. Okay, so in this situation, we are down in a 3 versus 7 scenario. And I realized that right now, let me pause and just show you what I'm thinking. As I make the mini-maps more. Right now, in this situation, this tortoise, if this tortoise gets into a sandwich, the game is over. Currently, they're facing the DZT-159, but if the 252U and friends get behind them, this tortoise is going to be in a world of hurt. And this is just such an important piece for the puzzle of trying to win this game. So I realized that even though I'm getting good value against this VK sitting down there, there's practically no value for the tortoise if I keep this line of fire, because he's going to want to have this angle. So I knew that if the T-95 gets in front of the tortoise, or if he gets somebody behind him, then that's going to be how we're going to lose this battle. And can you really trust an Su-130 PM, which is a glass cannon, to be able to look after itself? Accordingly, I wanted to change the angles and make sure this tortoise isn't going to have the DZT or the XVM around this position, going and catching him in a line of fire. And this is just where having those rockets on this tank is just absolutely so good. We rocketed across the open fire from the T-95 so we don't get hit there. And I like to keep the last rocket. The last rocket is great. Well, look at me for doubting the Su-130 PM as he actually finishes off the 252U. And that DZT was trying to maybe get up into the bushes above me, but it didn't work out for him. We shut him down, and now we just get the reward. We tell the tortoise that we're going to help them. The LT-432 was in a sneaky position. Not sneaking around anymore, mate. And then, oh yeah, we've completely changed this 3 versus 7 now into a 3 versus 4, where we have our opponents completely locked down. This T-95 is not going to be able to duel this tortoise from the front. That E-75, as you can see, who was going after the Su-130 PM. Doesn't matter if he deals with the Su-130 PM, he's not going to get behind the tortoise. And I've completely prevented that crossfire using those rockets to be able to advance into crazy positions. I really can't overstate how useful these rockets are. They're incredibly useful. You can do multiple things with them, as I showed in my tank review, like rocket, stop, fire, then rocket again if you're caught in a Tundra position. And then this is where saving that final rocket means that I get to just put pressure up on the XMV and then wiggle, 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 wiggle. They miss, and I high roll at the end of the game, picking up a whopping 7,000 damage and 7 kills in this 7-minute game on Paris. Just shows you that this DZT can go into a heavy flank. It has that turret armor to sit in that hold down position. If they don't have tier 10 and tier 9 tanks with really good gold pen, they're just not going through the very thick turret front that this vehicle has. So you can play it like a hold down bruiser, brawler, but just make sure you're using that speed to get around and to prevent those flanking plays that will cause your team to lose, or if you're 3-marking, prevent you from being able to get damage. Next up, you see me using a way more sweaty setup than in the previous video. Now I'm using vent purges as well. Oh, chef's kiss for being able to breach. The way that I like to 3-mark tanks is I get to about 92 or 93% without a directive, and then I put on the vent purges as well. And usually that extra 2.5% cruise skill from the vent purge, meaning that I'm actually getting 11% from the vents and the directive right now. That's more than a premium consumable. That extra 1% everything about my vehicle just manages to help me breach across that final threshold. So we can see that the rockets get us through that position, and while we do take some hit points as a sacrifice, I guess, that must be made to be able to take this position. Now that we're up here, we just completely changed the tempo of the game. We stopped the Lansen from being able to duel that Borask. Maybe the Lansen would have been able to finish off that Borask if they were reloading. And now we can use the hill to be able to dictate the pace of the combat. And that really is your key to success in the DZT-159. in my humble opinion, is that you use that turbo, you use those rockets to get into position aggressively, and then you dominate the battle from said position. You saw that when we were playing on Paris, we used rockets to get into a position that heavy tanks usually trundle into, and then we used rockets to be able to ram kill a standard B, and then cross the gap to be able to avoid the shell from the T-95, and then close the distance with the XM57. And then you've seen here that we've used the rockets to contest the only where the fastest light tanks and medium tanks are able to get without losing pretty much all of their hit points at the start of the battle. In this situation, we did lose. We had to pay like a 600 hit point tax. But I feel like now, the profit that can be had from the hill, it's worth paying that tax. And there's so many maps like this. You've got mines, had big boy games on mines on this map. Sorry, not on this map. Had big boy games on mines in this tank. Big boy games on Tundra. And also on Glacier as well, challenging the hill, as you would have seen in my full tank review of this tank. Any opportunity that you have to take a position that requires speed to get into, where then you can use the high ground, works out. So I forgot about one thing here, and that is, watch out for the rocks behind the bushes there. So actually go down the slope. I think my loader dies in the collision. We have to use a premium medkit to get them back in. And I lost 420 hit points to a wall. Okay. But what you're going to see here is that just having that foresight to be able to get into those positions really will pay off. The best way to break Tundra is to take the hill, force your opponents to camp here. And you see there are DZTs on the enemy team. But those DZTs, they didn't invest in getting up onto the hill quickly. Or maybe they got bad spawns, for all I know. But all I know now is that I get to absolutely raid their hit points in this scenario. This position here for a DZT is just perfect. 7 degrees of gun depression gives me the flexibility I need. The big turret armor as well means that I can kind of expose. And with the way that the ridgeline works, I'll be able to only give minuscule amounts of my upper hull armor while they have fully exposed themselves. Rockets ain't going to save you here, buddy. You should have contested the hill at the beginning. And we're going to just be able to snowball so hard from this position. So the rockets allowed us to win the hill. Then we forced our opponents into a defensive play. Then after that, we've now managed to once again use our mobility. Although you could argue falling down the slope and losing 420 hit points is less than graceful use of it to be able to get that flanking play. And this tank just does so well in these forward positions, so well on these ridge lines. And this gun as well, when you're using the vents and the gun rammer, the firepower that this thing gets, it's not great. You know, I'd rather play a T-54, but the thing is that when you're hitting for 440 damage, it's meaty. It's absolutely meaty. This thing trades up. It really does. The only few things that really are not brilliant about this vehicle have to be 310 millimeters of heat pen, right? I'd rather have the 330 that you get on like a T-54. But the standard pen is very surprising. We're at 260 and also that 1,150 meters a second shell velocity. I do think that this is the kind of tank that rewards aggressive plays. He who dares wins in this vehicle is how I feel about the DZT-159. And having successfully 3-marked this vehicle now, I think this is going to become one of my favorite premium tanks for just blowing off a little bit of steam and blowing off a few rockets as well. And once you know you're nearing the end of the game, you can afford to use these rockets for micro movements just to be able to give you a few extra seconds, right? And you will start to naturally time those rockets and make sure you invest them at moments of the game where they're going to make the biggest of differences. And if you're able to do that, then you have all the mobility to be able to flow around the battlefield, and then improving things like your firepower with the vents and the gun rammer means that you're also going to have the firepower when you're there to be able to pick your opponents apart. And just like that, in this sub-6 minute game, we've picked up 7 kills once again, and just shy of 7,000 damage. And oh, hello, Mr. DZT. Am I going to high roll on you? Oh, I'm not going to high roll. Oh well, how about I just use the final rocket? He got a few extra damage as well, although not much. He only got 52 to be able to secure that savage Radley Walters medal. So one more for the road. I think this was the first game that I played in the DZT-159 after 3-marking this tank. Raising the gun to the air in celebration. The requirements to 3-mark this vehicle, it's actually the second hardest medium tank in the game to 3-mark right now. It's about 4,100 on the European server to 3-mark this vehicle. The only vehicle that's harder is the Kampfpanzer. And that is because that vehicle is kind of a ranked reward. And so only the better players usually are purchasing that one. Or at least all the players who are dedicated enough to go and grind in Onslaught as well. And man, look, we're both using the same style, but we definitely don't have the same caliber of gun here. Or I guess we do. We both got 122 millimeters. It's just mine hits for 50 harder with way more pen, and he's going to struggle in this situation. So the 3-marking of this vehicle, it was a fun 3-mark. I'm not going to lie. It took me about 160 games. Eventually, it was just a little bit of tilt and probably a little bit of fatigue. I think I'm streaming a little bit too much, probably making one too many YouTube videos right now, as well as also getting ready for the charity stream, which hopefully I'll have announced at the beginning of the video, and also at the end, if I remember to do everything that I'm trying to remember to do. But this was a very fun 3-mark. It really was. It's a very powerful vehicle, especially on these kind of maps, where you just need a reasonable amount of gun depression, you know? When you need a reasonable amount of gun depression. And look, just making these little plays, like, do you notice how the T-34-3, he just looked like, oh, I'll be safe if I go over here. No, you're not. You can surprise people so much by having that 5-second burst of rockets to be able to make those flanking plays. And they're plays that players don't expect. They really don't. And if you're bold enough to make those plays, to notice when your opponents have a lapse of judgment, or they're feeling a little bit vulnerable, that is how you can just absolutely conquer in the DZT-159. So unfortunately for the Shelmer here, looks like they're having a little bit of a rough round. And I didn't like the fact that that Borsig absolutely smashed my hit points for 479 there. So I want to chase him. I see that he's got his turret facing the other way. And unfortunately for the enemy team, it looks like they're having a little bit of a rough game with a couple of AFKs here. Same thing happened to me when I was playing my... I was playing a Manticore the other day on Redshire. Just 2 AFKs at the start of the battle. Oh man, I mean, come on. How can you not love this tank? Get revenge on the Borsig, and that's where the turbo and engineer on this vehicle really do come into play. Unfortunately for me, I actually took 121 damage. I mean, the Borsig took substantially more, right? They're in the garage now. But that 121 that I took now means that I'm a one-shot for pretty much everything on the enemy team. So we've got to be sneaky. But hopefully you can see that these rockets just allow you to make funky, fun plays that other vehicles can only just dream of. Talk about target-rich environment right now, boys and girls, huh? That's a meaty alpha and a meaty penetration there on the E75. I'm lucky they missed my hull and hit my tracks. I'm not going to repair, I didn't feel the need to there. But 260 standard pen on this tank, it's very underrated. I made millions and millions and millions and millions of credits 3-marking this vehicle this holiday season. This tank does not need to spam gold. In fact, there are many situations where the gold rounds will actually be worse when you're shooting through spaced armor, and also when you're shooting at angled surfaces. You know, these AP rounds with their 260, as long as you are using those 5 degrees of normalization against a surface that is angled by at least 5 degrees, they're pretty much on par with the heat rounds this vehicle has. Oh no, awkward moment. Okay, good. I did just manage to get my gun through. There's a little bit of a bug going around on the server right now where sometimes the gun is actually in a different place to where it's visually showing you. I've had quite a few shells just get absorbed in. And this is just where this vehicle just gets to feast. And it has not great damage per minute, but not bad. And when you only have to expose yourself roughly every like 9 seconds with a vehicle like this, your opponents kind of forget about you. They don't sit there. And when I'm playing a T-54, for example, I'll have to sit there because I got like a 5-second reload. And I have to expose myself, right? To be able to maximize the damage per minute that the vehicle has. But that's just not the case with the DZT. And there we go. Another easy top gun in 5 minutes with 7,500 combined. Now, I didn't show you any of the games today where I use the Vision System exhaust build. But trust me, this vehicle, it can get up to about like 34% camo if you take the correct field mods and you take the exhaust. And that just makes this thing oh so sneaky as well. And the thing is that dropping the turbo, it definitely makes the vehicle feel a little bit sluggish, but you can still go about 62, 63 kilometers an hour with the engineering skill and the rockets to be able to get into position. And I just realized I'm miscalculating. No, it's more like 70 kilometers an hour without a turbo to be able to get into position. And while I definitely still recommend using a turbo on this tank because you want to get into position quickly, for those bushy maps like Muravanka, you can still contest the center while using the Vision System exhaust. And it's really surprising that a tank that is just oh so brutal with its turret armor can end up also just getting this kind of like mid-30s camo rating that really gives your opponent, well, it gives light tanks especially, little opportunity to catch you with vision getting into position. And when you're there, unless they're set up very sweaty with good crew skills, a premium consumable, and they've got Vision System and probably an exhaust as well to boot with coated optics, that you're likely to be able to outspot them. This is a fantastic tank. Do I think it's bonkers OP? No, it's not bonkers OP. It's a very good tank. I would say that my tank review was pretty much bang on. That the hull armor on this vehicle definitely lets it down a lot. And the gun, it's good, it's brutal, but there are better tier 9 guns out there. But this combination of speed when you need it with turret armor that works against everything apart from tier 9 and tier 10 vehicles make this one not just oh so fun, but also a very competitive tank. I'd say this is, for good players, probably the best new tier 9 premium tank in the game. However, there'll be players out there who just expose that hull, don't use the rockets to contest early positions, that will fall back in this tank. I think it's actually a very high skill cap tank, and undoubtedly one of my favorite 3 marks in the game so far. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed. How many kills did we get? About 21 kills in probably about 21 minutes. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about your DZT-159 if you have it, or what do you think about them in the matchmaker right now? Do you think they're oppressive, or do you think they have enough vulnerabilities? And if you're watching this video as it is released on Saturday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, raising money for cancer research and special effect. There are exclusive drops that you can get right now if you want to get a few extra Santa babies and some premium consumables. And I'll be putting a link to the fundraiser down below. If you don't have time to tune into the stream, please consider supporting Cancer Research UK and Special Effect. It would be my honor to see if we can add to the already $400,000 that we've raised for them since 2013. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now on what is one of the most emotional and my favorite streams of the year. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.